The bike that made you grin at 30 can quietly beat you up at 55. Your back, knees, and shoulders don't bounce back the way they used to, and the wrong motorcycle now doesn't just mean discomfort, it can mean a strained back, a parking lot tip over, or riding less and less until you stop altogether. This isn't about weakness, it's about reality. In this video, we'll look at 7 types of motorcycles you should be very careful about after 50, and what to choose instead, so you can keep riding comfortably for years. Let's start with the heavyweight that hurts riders most in parking lots. The back-breaking land yacht. Oversized touring and cruisers. Getting older does not mean your touring days are over. It means you need to be honest about what 850 or 900 pounds of motorcycle feels like when it starts to fall away from you in a parking lot. Back-breaking weight is dramatic at walking speed. When you were younger, you could muscle a big bike around with brute strength and quick reflexes. Aging changes that equation. Balance shifts a bit, your core is not quite as explosive, and joints do not like sudden twisting loads. That matters most not at 70 miles per hour on the freeway, but at 3 miles per hour in a gas station. Balance shifts, and small errors grow. Here I am talking about full-dress mega-tourers and cruisers in the 850 to 900 pound plus range, loaded with trunks and luggage, with much of that weight sitting high. They are amazing once rolling in a straight line. The problem is everything that happens before and after that. The first issue is slow speed handling. Parking lots, angled gas station exits, gravelly shoulders, and sloped driveways all become high-risk zones on a true land yacht. You are fighting a huge mass that wants to keep going in whatever direction it is already leaning. A tiny mistake, grabbing a little too much front brake in a slow turn, misjudging a camber, putting a foot down on a bit of gravel, can turn into a drop you simply cannot save anymore. Slow speed handling is where trouble starts. That leads straight into the second problem, catching and lifting the bike. In your 30s, you could sometimes wrestle a big bike back from the edge of a tip over. Past 50, that same heroic catch can wrench a shoulder, strain your lower back, or twist a knee. Recovery from that injury often lasts far longer than the bruise to your ego. Even just lifting a heavy bike from a simple driveway tip-over becomes a real risk to your spine. Lifting is a real hazard. The third problem is heat and fatigue in traffic. Big touring cruisers often bring heavy clutches, lots of engine heat around your legs, and a lot of inertia to fight at very low speeds. Sit-in stop and go traffic on a hot day, feathering a heavy clutch on a 900-pound machine, and your focus starts to fade. That is when little mistakes slip in. A missed footing, a late dab, an overcooked U-turn. Fatigue builds quickly. There is a pattern I see often. A rider graduates to the flagship touring model, the biggest, heaviest thing in the showroom, thinking it is a reward for decades of riding. For a while, it feels impressive. Then the miles per year quietly start to drop. The bike only comes out on perfect days. Tight parking lots and gas stops become something to avoid. Eventually, the bike sits in the garage more than it rolls, not because they do not love riding, but because managing the bike is exhausting. Usage declines over time. You do not need a land yacht to tour in comfort. What you want instead is a mid-weight touring or cruiser platform, typically in the 550 to 750 pound range, with a low center of gravity. That is still a substantial, stable motorcycle, but now the weight is manageable. Low seat height, a reasonable reach to the bars, and a chassis that behaves predictably at walking pace matter far more than how much chrome is bolted on the back. Comfort and manageability beat showy specs. If you can, look for features like reverse assist on heavier tourers, and pay attention to how the bike feels with luggage mounted. Some designs carry weight low and close to the rider. Others stack it high and far back, which makes low-speed balance worse. When you test, do not just ride down the highway and back. Spend a few minutes doing tight parking lot maneuvers, slow figure eights, U-turns between parking lines, creeping around pumps. Then repeat the same drills on a lighter, mid-weight alternative. Notice what your body is doing. Here is a simple garage test that rarely lies. With the engine off, gear on, and the bike loaded as you would actually ride, push it around by hand. Back it out of a space, turn it, roll it back in. If you dread that task, if you are already thinking, "I do not want to wrestle this every time I ride," that is your warning. The bike is too much. Your goal in these years is not to prove you can manage the biggest machine in the parking lot. You already proved you can ride hard bikes. Now, the smart move is to choose a bike that lets you ride more often, with less stress and less risk. Section 2. The Human Pretzel. Extreme sport bikes and race replicas. Aggressive ergonomics are the next trap. With big tourers, the danger is weight. With race replica sport bikes, the danger is the way they fold your body. After 50, your neck, wrists, hips, and lower back do not have the same tolerance for extreme flexion and constant load. That does not mean you are fragile. It means the margin for abuse is smaller, and recovery takes longer when you cross the line. When I say extreme sport bikes, I mean the true race replica machines, clip-on handlebars below the top triple clamp, high rear sets that pull your feet way back and up, and a long stretch to a low tank. They are designed to work at 100+ miles per hour on a track, with your chest almost on the tank and your head barely above the windscreen. On the street, that position brings three main problems. First is wrist pain and hand pain. In that deep forward lean, a lot of your upper body weight goes straight through your palms into the bars. Every bump, every braking zone, every vibration stacks up in your hands, forearms, and elbows. If you have even mild arthritis, carpal tunnel, or old tendon issues, a couple of hours like this can leave your fingers numb and your grip weak. Second is neck strain and upper back strain. On the highway, you are craning your head up from a tucked position just to see down the road. Instead of your head stacking naturally over your spine, you are holding it up like a bowling ball on the end of a lever. Do that for an hour or two, and the muscles between your shoulder blades and across the base of your skull start to burn. When that happens, your ability to scan and react cleanly drops off. Third is the hip and knee angle. High rear set pegs mean your knees and hips are bent tight the entire time. For taller riders or anyone with a history of knee or hip trouble, that locked up angle can go from a little stiff to I can barely step off the bike surprisingly fast. The safety problem under all of this is simple. Pain steals attention. When your brain is busy complaining about your wrists or your neck, it is not fully processing traffic patterns, surface changes, or that driver edging into your lane. Many riders just push through the discomfort, but their world narrows down to when can I get off this thing instead of what is that car about to do. There is also an ego trap. You might think, I have been riding 30 years, I can handle a supersport. Maybe you can for 20 or 30 minutes at a time. The question is not whether you can survive it. The question is whether it encourages you to ride often, and whether you are fully sharp when you do. The good news is you do not have to give up sharp handling or fun to get comfortable ergonomics. Modern upright naked bikes, standards, and sport tourers can be just as engaging in the real world without the human pretzel posture. You want what is often called a neutral rider triangle. Your head roughly over your hips, a slight bend in the elbows, a neutral wrist angle, and knees at a bend your joints can live with all day. Comfortable ergonomics matters. When you sit on a candidate bike, pay attention to those details. Your elbows should be softly bent, not locked. Your wrists should line up with your forearms, not cocked up or down. Your back should feel like it can relax. Your knees should feel like they could stay in that position for an hour. Pay attention to those signs. There are useful adjustments, bar risers, slightly lower pegs, taller seats, but those are fine-tuning tools, not magic wands. Start with a platform that is already close. If you have to dramatically fold yourself to reach the bars, it is the wrong base. If you remember nothing else here, hang on to this. If you have to fight the bike's posture, it will win. Choose a layout your body can relax into, not one it has to endure. 3. The Garage Queen, high-maintenance vintage projects and oddballs. Now let's talk about a different kind of problem, the bike that does not hurt you when you ride it, because you hardly ever ride it. After 50, your riding time is precious. Work, family, health appointments, and limited good weather windows mean every clear Saturday matters. The last thing you need is a motorcycle that spends more time on a stand with the tank off than on the road under you. The danger zone here is high-maintenance vintage machines, long-term projects, and oddball or orphan brands you cannot easily get parts for. I am not saying old bikes are bad. I am saying they are bad choices if you expect them to be your main dependable ride. Older, carbureted bikes and long-stored machines bring a lot of age-related baggage. Brittle wiring, dried-out rubber, leaking seals, worn bearings, corroded connectors, and tired charging systems. Any one of those is fixable, but they stack. Instead of spending 2 hours riding, you are chasing down why the left cylinder will not idle without choke, or why the dash goes dead when you hit a bump. Then there is parts and service. With a common modern bike, you can usually get what you need in a few days. With rare imports, obscure brands, or 40-year-old models, parts might be weeks out if they exist at all. Many shops do not want to touch them, or they will warn you diagnosis time will get expensive fast. If you are not doing your own wrenching, that cost adds up. Even if you are handy, there is a physical price. Spending hours hunched over a bike on a cold garage floor, wrestling stuck fasteners or lifting tanks on and off is much harder on a 55-year-old back than it was at 25. Kneeling, twisting, and gripping tools with aging hands is not free. Emotionally, the big trap here is nostalgia. The bike you lusted after in your 20s, the one that got away, the exact model your buddy had in college, that memory is powerful. You see one for sale and think, this is my chance. What you are really buying, though, is decades of history and all the deferred maintenance that comes with it. There is nothing wrong with having a hobby bike you enjoy working on. If turning wrenches is as satisfying to you as riding, then a vintage machine can be a great second or third bike. The danger is when you buy that kind of motorcycle expecting it to be your primary, ready-to-go ride. When it does not start on the first push or leaves you stranded, your window to ride that day closes. A smarter path, if you like the look of older machines, is a modern retro or standard. You get the classic lines, but with fuel injection, ABS, solid charging systems, and parts sitting on shelves. Hit the starter, it fires. Need brake pads, they are a phone call away. You spend your good hours actually riding. Anytime you are tempted by a vintage or oddball bike, run a quick checklist before your heart takes over. Can you easily get critical parts, brake components, charging parts, cables, seals? Are there known weak points on this model? And have they been addressed? When was the last full service with proof? Not just the seller saying so? And most important, who nearby is willing and able to work on it if you cannot? If those answers are not clear, think hard about whether this is a fun side project or whether you are about to park your main riding season on a lift. Your hands are small, but they are doing big work on a motorcycle. Clutch, brake, throttle, every input runs through those joints, tendons, and nerves. As we age, grip strength, flexibility, and nerve sensitivity all change, especially if you have dealt with arthritis, carpal tunnel, or old injuries. That's why bikes with heavy controls and outdated ergonomics are such quiet villains. They do not feel dangerous in the showroom, but after an hour in traffic, they can make basic control work feel like a gym session. The first culprit is a heavy clutch, one that is non-adjustable. Older cable clutches, poorly routed cables, or stiff clutch springs can turn every pull into a real squeeze. In stop-and-go traffic, you might pull that lever hundreds of times. Forearms pump up, fingers start to ache, and eventually you find yourself short-shifting or slipping the clutch more than you should, just to avoid the pain. Tired hands are slower hands when something sudden happens. Next is throttle effort and response. A stiff throttle return, spring or dry cables mean you are constantly working just to hold a steady speed. Combine that with poor fueling or a snatchy response off idle, and every small adjustment becomes a jerk. That extra muscle effort and mental load wear you down over a long ride more than you would think. Then you have brake feel and lever reach. Small, non-adjustable levers set too far from the bar are a real problem if you have shorter fingers or reduced flexibility. You end up stretching or twisting your wrist at odd angles just to get a decent grip. Vague or wooden brakes make you squeeze harder for the same effect, again stressing hands and wrists. Modern bikes have given us a lot of tools to solve this. Light hydraulic clutches, slipper clutches that reduce the need for perfectly matched downshifts, ride-by-wire throttles with smooth response, anti-lock braking system often called ABS to back you up when traction gets questionable. There are even dual-clutch transmission options, often called DCT, and other automatic or semi-automatic options that remove most clutch work entirely. For a lot of riders over 50, those are not gimmicks. They are what keep longer rides enjoyable. When you are shopping, do not just sit on the bike and nod. Do a little traffic simulation. With the engine off, pull the clutch lever 30 or 40 times while you watch your hand and wrist. Does it feel like something you could do for 10 minutes at low speeds? Or are you already noticing strain? Do the same with the front brake. Roll the throttle on and off repeatedly. Some things are easy fixes. Swapping to adjustable levers, replacing old cables, or rerouting them can make a big difference. Grip diameter and compound matter too. A grip that is too fat or too hard can make your hands work overtime. But there are limits. If a bike's basic design includes an inherently heavy clutch, awkward lever angles, or cramped bar position, you can only improve it so much without major surgery. At that point, it may not be worth fighting. You are not just choosing a machine, you are choosing a set of repetitive motions your body has to live with. Listen to your hands, wrists, and forearms during test rides. Numbness, tingling, or soreness that shows up quickly is feedback. A motorcycle should ask for attention and precision, not constant effort just to operate the basics. 5. The Overkill rocket, excessive power and twitchy throttles. We've talked about weight and control effort. Now we need to talk about power, because this is where a lot of experienced riders quietly put themselves in a bad spot. When you were younger, chasing the biggest horsepower number made sense. You had faster reflexes, more appetite for risk, and maybe fewer people depending on you. Past 50, reaction times soften a little. Vision and depth perception shift, and recovery from any crash takes longer. The consequences get bigger, even if the mistake is small. The bikes I am talking about here are the Overkill rockets, lighter-class superbikes, and hyper-nakeds tuned for explosive acceleration. Throttle tubes that feel like light switches, 140-plus horsepower, and power bands that really wake up right when the road runs out. On a track, in the right hands, they are incredible tools. On public roads, they often give you way more performance than you can comfortably or safely use. The first issue is throttle sensitivity. On these machines, a few millimeters of wrist movement can mean a big jump in speed, especially in the lower gears. Mid-corner, in the rain, or on bumpy pavement, that kind of response can upset the chassis fast. If your hand is a little stiff, a little numb, or you are just tired, it is easy to give the bike more than you meant to. Then there is the temptation factor. A lot of riders tell themselves they will just use half the power. That works for a week or two. Then there is a straight stretch, or a friend eggs you on, or you get used to the rush. Before long, you are regularly tapping into performance that leaves almost no margin for error if something unexpected happens. A car pulls out, gravel appears, a corner tightens up. There are also the running costs. Insurance on big power bikes is often higher. They eat rear tires faster. Some demand premium fuel or more frequent maintenance. If the cost makes you ride less, you lose seat time and skill fades. You end up with a bike that is terrifyingly fast on paper and underused in real life. What you want at this stage is broad, usable, mid-range torque, not peak dyno numbers. Power that comes in smoothly from the low and middle revs lets you roll on out of corners, pass traffic cleanly, and deal with hills without constantly shifting. Middleweight twins and triples in the 70 to about 100 horsepower range with friendly throttle mapping feel strong in the real world without trying to rip your arms off. When you test ride, do not be impressed by how hard it pulls at redline. Spend your time at normal street speeds. From 3,000 to 5,000 revolutions per minute in second and third gear, roll the throttle on and off. Does the bike respond in a smooth, predictable way, or does it lurch and surge? Remember, power you cannot comfortably control, in the conditions you actually ride, is wasted. A well-chosen middleweight will still feel fast, be easier on your body, and give you more room to react when something goes wrong. 6. The high stepper. Tall, top-heavy adventure bikes. Adventure bikes are appealing, especially later in life. Upright ergonomics, good visibility, comfortable seats, big fuel tanks, the promise of gravel roads, and backcountry exploring, it all fits the idea of enjoying your golden years on two wheels. But aging changes the equation here too. Inseams shrink a bit as we lose flexibility. Hip mobility is not what it used to be. Balance might be slightly less forgiving. Combine that with a very tall, top-heavy motorcycle, and you have a recipe for embarrassing and sometimes painful low-speed spills. The high steppers I am talking about are the full-size adventure bikes with long travel suspension and seat heights in the 33 to 35-inch range or higher, especially once you add a big tank and luggage. Empty on a showroom floor, they can feel tall but manageable. Loaded with fuel, panniers, and camping gear, they are a different story. The first big problem is simple tip-over risk at stops. If you can only get your toes down, and that is on perfectly flat pavement, any slope, rut, or patch of gravel under your foot can push you past the point of no return. A slight lean at a stop sign turns into a slow fall that you cannot stop. Second is confidence erosion. A couple of almost dropped-it moments at gas stations or on cambered side streets will change the way you ride. You start avoiding certain routes. You tense up every time you have to stop on a hill. Third, off-camber and low-speed off-road work get much more demanding with a tall, top-heavy bike. A small misstep on a rutted trail, a dab into a hole you did not see, or a rock under your boot can send a fully loaded adventure bike onto its side fast. Lifting it back up in dirt, on a slope, with limited footing, is hard work for any age, and a real hazard past 50. None of that means you need to give up the adventure idea. It just means you need to be picky about fit. Smart alternatives include factory-lowered adventure models, mid-size adventure, and dual sport bikes with more reasonable seat heights, or even standard bikes with mild off-road capability. When you assess fit, be strict. In your normal boots, with the bike set up as you would ride it, you should at least be able to get the balls of both feet down with some authority, and ideally be close to flat-footed. If you are stretched to one side, or you have to slide off the seat at every stop, that is a red flag. Also, pay attention to how the bike carries its weight. Some adventure bikes keep fuel and luggage low and close to the center. Others feel like all the mass is up high. Rock the bike gently from side to side at a stop, and notice how quickly it wants to keep falling once it moves past center. You can still explore gravel roads, Forest Service tracks, and light trails on a more manageable platform. Adventure is a mindset, not a minimum seat height. The Wind Punisher. Zero protection bikes for long rides. So we have talked about weight, posture, maintenance, controls, power, and height. The last trap is subtler, because these bikes feel fine for the first 20 minutes. The damage shows up an hour or two down the road. I am talking about the Wind Punishers, totally naked standards and cruisers that you plan to use for longer highway rides, but that offer almost no protection, no screen, no handguards, no real comfort aids, just you, the bike, and a whole lot of air trying to peel you off the seat. No protection. When you are younger, you can muscle through that constant wind blast. Your core is stronger, your neck recovers faster, and you bounce back overnight. Past 50, fatigue sets in quicker and takes longer to leave. Wind and noise are sneaky ways to drain your energy and your focus. Fatigue. The first problem is wind fatigue. At 65 or 75 miles per hour, the air is pushing hard on your chest and your helmet every second you are out there. Your core muscles are working just to hold you upright. Your neck is resisting that steady pressure on your head. When your muscles are that tired, small corrections get sloppier, and your ability to react cleanly to sudden changes drops. Wind fatigue. The second issue is noise and buffeting. Turbulent air around your helmet does not just get annoying, it is exhausting. Your brain is processing a constant roar, your head is getting jostled, and that combination wears down concentration. Noise. Third, there is temperature. With no wind protection, you are fully exposed to whatever the air is doing. On a cool day, that wind chill cuts right through your jacket. On a hot day, full sun plus a constant blast of warm air dehydrates you faster than you realize. Temperature. A lot of riders resist wind protection because they think screens, guards, and heated bits are for old guys, or they do not like the look. The mindset I would offer instead is simple. Those are intelligent adaptations that keep you in the saddle longer and safer. You are not turning your bike into a couch. You are trimming off the stuff that needlessly wears you down. Better setups do not have to be huge touring fairings. A small to mid-size windscreen that takes the direct blast off your chest, simple handguards that keep cold air off your fingers, and practical add-ons like heated grips or even a heated seat for shoulder seasons can make a big difference in how long you can ride comfortably. Add some luggage so you can carry layers, water, and rain gear, and longer days feel reasonable instead of punishing. Comfort. Here is a simple test when you are looking at a bike with no protection. Mentally put yourself on that exact machine for a 3-hour freeway run. Same bars, same seat, same naked front. Do not add a screen later in your imagination. Judge it as it sits. If that thought alone makes you feel tired, cold, or beat up, you already have your answer. Wind protection is not about comfort for its own sake. It is about arriving at your destination with enough energy left to enjoy the ride back, and enough focus to handle whatever the road throws at you. Your brain can only process so much input at once. Make it choose between fighting wind or watching traffic, and something important gets missed. Focus. The bikes that let you ride longer are not always the ones with the biggest engines or the flashiest paint. Often, they are the ones that quietly take care of the small stuff: wind, temperature, hand position, so your body can focus on the riding itself. That is not compromise. That is choosing to ride smarter instead of tougher. The real motorcycle you should never buy after 50 is not a specific brand or model. It is any bike that fights your body so hard you end up riding less or quitting early. Avoiding these 7 traps is not about giving up. It is about choosing lighter, easier, smarter machines that extend your riding years instead of shortening them. Before you buy, run a quick self-check. Make sure the weight is something you can manage, the height is something you can handle, the ergonomics let you relax, the controls suit your hands, the maintenance is something you can live with, and you have enough wind protection for the miles you actually ride. You have already proven you can handle hard bikes. Now prove you can choose the right one for this stage of your life. If you want a concrete next step, watch my 7-point checklist video next. I will walk you through exactly how to apply this in a showroom or in a private sale. If this helped, subscribe and tell me in the comments what bike you regretted after 50 and what you are considering as your intelligent adaptation.